The U.S. wants more intense relations with ASEAN as Washington pushes for a greater Indo-Pacific presence. The U.S. ambassador to ASEAN, Yohannes Abraham, is hoping for greater engagement. In an exclusive interview, he told CNE's Chandni Vatvani what the ties mean for America's commitment to the Southeast Asian region.
Fundamentally, we think that prosperous, resilient and independent ASEAN is good for all of us. And so we want, and we believe, as I mentioned, deeply in ASEAN centrality. So we want to work with and through ASEAN to find opportunities to collaborate on the issues that matter to our combined 1 billion people. And so deepening our engagement means, at its most basic, we want every part of our government talking to their ASEAN counterparts across health, energy, on down the line, transportation, et cetera, so that way they can find solutions to challenges that we all collectively face, and also find ways in which we can tackle the opportunities that present themselves for all of us. And importantly, that engagement, from our view, should start at the top.
Southeast Asia lies at the crossroads of the Indo-Pacific. Now, how important is the region to the U.S. when it comes to the U.S.'s Indo-Pacific strategy?
Southeast Asia is absolutely critical to the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy. As President Biden himself has said, ASEAN is at the heart of my Indo-Pacific strategy. We are deeply committed to ASEAN centrality. We think ASEAN has an incredibly important role to play in the regional architecture, and we think that when ASEAN is prosperous and independent, we're all better off. The region's better off, the world's better off.
How does the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy prioritize ASEAN centrality, and how would it provide ASEAN, so to speak, with realistic and tangible options when engaging major partners, or major powers rather, especially on the economic front?
For us, thinking about ASEAN centrality means that we want to work with and through ASEAN on key issues, be they challenges or opportunities. I smile every time I talk about how dynamic this region is, and that's certainly true on the economic front as well. I'll just give you one, which is illustrative of, I think, a broader whole. Over the course of years, the U.S. has worked very closely with ASEAN on the ASEAN single window. We've put a lot of time, resources, and expertise in working with ASEAN. It's an ASEAN-specific mechanism, and it's one that has already saved businesses doing business within ASEAN billions of dollars. And we think that is good for ASEAN. We think it's good for ASEAN connectivity. We think it's good for ASEAN economic growth. And fundamentally, we think those things are good for us and for the region.
How will this approach come into play with regards to China?
I want to be clear, our excitement about ASEAN and our investment in ASEAN is because this is an incredibly important region that we are excited about for its own sake.
How significantly do you see Indonesia's role within ASEAN to the U.S. with regards to its position in the region?
Indonesia is a very, very important voice globally. We saw that at the G20 last year, where Indonesian leadership was on full display for the world. That's certainly true in the region, and it's certainly true in ASEAN. With Indonesia as ASEAN chair and also as our country coordinator, we want to support Indonesia's efforts to have a successful chair year and to deliver on their chair theme.
Myanmar. Would you say, or do you think ASEAN is doing enough? Will the United States be looking to sort of nudge Indonesia, or even in its chairmanship, to do more when it comes to the Myanmar issue?
We fully support ASEAN centrality in dealing with the crisis in Myanmar. We support the implementation of the ASEAN 5-point consensus. Our sense is that Indonesia takes this issue very seriously. So we will be looking at ways, and we'll stay in constant dialogue with Indonesia. We'll be looking for ways in which we can work with Indonesia and the rest of ASEAN to continue to address the crisis. Very grateful for the steps ASEAN has taken to deny the regime a seat at certain tables. And again, we think Indonesia is taking this issue seriously.